Hey, good morning, all. I believe my voice is audible and clear now. It is?
Hey, good
Yes.
morning.
Hey, hi. So this is the first time we are trying it out. Ask me anything. So this is actually literally same mean. Ask me anything. So you are free to ask anything. So if you see in your uh, window, you'll have one question tab. So you can put any questions, whatever you want to ask. It could be anything and our panelists are there to answer that. So we've already collected few of the questions. So I think some of our attendees has already posted some of the questions. So I have taken those also. So I'll be starting with that. You can keep on posting your questions over there. And you can raise your hand also. So once you raise your hand, then I can pull you in and you can directly ask your questions instead of typing. So whatever you're comfortable with, attendees. So you can either post your questions or you can raise your hand and ask a question. So that's how this format will go. So even before going to that, I just want a quick introduction from all. So I have already done so in our previous welcome session. So Roshan, he's a CTO of Simplify. So you want to talk a bit on about you?
Yeah, am I audible?
Yes, yes, you are.
Yeah, good morning, all. Yeah, thanks for inviting me here. I think I've been part of this meetup for a few years now. I think I've spoken a couple of times, and I've been attending. I think Janardhan and Patro, I think awesome job that. A bit about myself. Yeah, so I am currently the chief technology, and I handle the product, as well, officer at Simplify Secretarial Services. So we are a SaaS-based product company. I have around more than 15 plus years of experience. Prior to this, I was with Amazon India. Before that, I tried a couple of startups, one on my own, which never took off, to be honest, and part of another tech startup. And before that, almost for a decade, I was with banking and financial products, FICO, and started my career with TCS. So I've seen both B2B, B2C, startup, enterprise. So yeah, have a mixed bag. So hopefully I should be able to help you guys today. Looking forward for this. Ask me anything. I've attended, but for me as a panelist, it's first time. So let's see how it goes. Looking forward. Thank you.
Hey, thank you, Roshan. So it was a very good introduction. Hey, Naveen, moving to you. So if you can talk about yourself, some lines.
Hi, am I loud and clear?
Yeah, you are, Naveen.
Okay. So, hi, good morning, all of you. Thanks to Patho and Janardhan for reaching out to me and giving me this opportunity to be a panelist. Of course, this is the first time that I'm doing this. Anyway, so just a brief introduction about myself. I'm from Bangalore and I have been working in the field of software development and training for about 22 years now. So, first 17 to 18 years of software development experience, and then the last 5 to 6 years of in corporate training. So I have been giving trainings predominantly on full stack development, like mean and MERN stack, right? So also I have given a couple of meetups, just sessions in JavaScript meetup. Initially, I think around 2018, to be very frank,
Yes.
right? So I had provided a mean full day session along with few other participants, a few other speakers. Yeah, that was actually my kind of a launch pad into this corporate training world, right? So in the last 3 to 4 years, I have provided training on Angular, React, Redux, Node.js, to companies like Dell, Boeing, Harman, all those companies. Yeah, that's basically about me. Yeah.
Hey, thank you, Naveen. So we'll move to Ankush. Ankush, a bit line about yourself, please.
Sure, Patro. Hey guys, my name is Ankush. Thank you all for coming out on a Saturday. Glad to have you here. So I was a technical founder at a startup in Los Angeles, which was a product similar to Pinterest for about 6.5 years. Then I moved to Hotstar as a web developer, and currently I've joined as an instructor in Pesto Tech. So that's a little bit about myself. I love to like teach people software engineering and even soft skills for that matter, how to interview, how to like build scalable products, and that's what Real Dev Squad is all about. It's a volunteer group which anybody can join. You know, if you want to know more details, just hit me up and I'll give you the details.
Hey, awesome, Ankush. So we'll move to Udit.
Hey, good morning, everyone. I'm glad to have you. Thank you, Patro and Janardhan, for giving this opportunity. And so, I'm also like the active member of this JavaScript meetup group. I have given talk in the past. I've attended a lot of meetups here, and I lead an awesome team at Postman and usually work mostly on JavaScript and primarily doing a lot of optimization and low-level stuff and maintain a lot of libraries on GitHub. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Looking forward to your questions.
Hey, thank you. So before even jumping to the questions which attendees has asked, I have some set of questions. So I'll start with Roshan. So Roshan, I think being a CTO, right? So how you can provide that learning time to the team, right? Because and the time to innovate, because you know always a delivery pressure will be there. We want to deliver something, but how we can take out that time for learning?
You're
Hey,
muted, Russian.
Sorry. Typically, what a team should do is see, in a company, you will always have this pressure of delivering something fast, delivering quickly, some customer breathing down your neck because they have a problem to solve, versus you, the engineering team's desire to build the next cool thing, use the next cool technology. What is that, right? So the answer lies in balancing these two. And if you look at some of the organizations, if I look at my experience from Amazon and all, you always dedicate a certain bandwidth to your engineering excellence, your operational excellence, right, and the day-to-day activities. So you will have to rotate people around that engineering excellence. Take goals and have define a goal. I don't want to do something because it is cool. Ultimately, you will have to tie it back to your business problem, your business need, or what is that value that you're going to add to your customers. So it's always good to work customer backwards and then have dedicated bandwidth on your engineering excellence, and then in that you make sure you give time, and that pressure is taken off you because you've got a buy-in from your management that this much of bandwidth is for doing engineering excellence, which is finding out cool technologies or building the next thing that will give us a you know not just a signal linear let's have a jump, but instead multiple steps jump, or if not exponential, and that's how you manage it.
hey, that was cool. So Ankush, so I see you have a part of a lot of founding things. So how you create that balance between your learning and doing something which is actually required for your startups?
So learning is a fundamental necessity for me in order to like keep up with emerging tech and also to like make sure that I have the knowledge base to make informed decisions. So I dedicate like almost 1 hour, 1.5 hours every single day in the morning to my learning. So that time is crucial, where I don't set up any meetings or do any other work for other tasks or other products or other companies. Like that is just me time where I focus just on learning, reading blogs, watching conference videos, reading about documentation, making my own sample projects, etc. So that in morning times are usually when most people don't wake up, so nobody is there to bother you with Slack messages or phone calls. So that works out for me.
Awesome, awesome. Hey, Naveen,
Yep. Hey,
so
Patro, your voice is a bit low. Maybe you may want to hold
yeah,
the mic wire a little closer. Thank you.
sure, Janardhan. Hey, Naveen, you do a lot of corporate training. So what kind of training requirement generally you get so that the other developers want to do it? And
Yeah. So, as part of corporate trainings, normally let me just explain the flow in which I deliver a training. Right. So, delivering training is my ultimate, work. Right. But prior to that, there is a lot of things that I prepare, right? So I normally get training requests from different companies, and I ensure that like there will be at least a month's time before I deliver that particular training, right? So I'm associated with certain training organizations like Simply Learn. Whenever they have a requirement, we have a talk with the customer or the client who requires a training, and
So,
yeah.
sorry. So, do you still get like people want to get trained on HTML, CSS, and JavaScript? Because
Yes,
that's a
there
primary
are,
topic.
like few clients. Yeah, let me just explain you the process, and then probably it will be more clear. So I get a request for training, and then I talk to one of the focals within the training organization or within the organization, and then like I happen to meet somebody who require the training. So normally the tech manager or somebody who is a senior in that particular like in the team which requires a training, they are going to give me the requirements. They are going to, for example, if I get a training request on Angular, right, and I try to understand what is their requirement. Are the participants of the team, do they have that basic knowledge of CSS, HTML, and JavaScript? Because for certain frameworks like Angular or React, these are some prerequisites that I expect the participants to know, right? So I ensure that that is known to them. And in case if there are few team members who do not know, then I give some kind of a pre-read or pre-read material so that they can actually have a look at it, right, prior to attending the training. So it really depends on what the customer needs. So, and most of the times what happens is these teams which I provide training to is kind of having a very dispersed experience, right? So there could be people with around 0 to 2 years of experience. There
Mhm.
could be people with 5 years of experience. There could be people who are into architecture or managers as well within these teams, because most of the times, the requirements that I see nowadays is that they already have a product, and it is probably like working well with older technology like Microsoft .NET or probably Java, which is not using the modern techniques or technologies which is used for web development today, right? So they want to migrate from an existing technology into a new technology, like they want to adapt, for example, mean kind of a stack for their existing product, right? So this is the most of the requirements that I get from these companies. Of course, like it is going to be mixed participants most of the scenarios, but
Mhm.
in certain scenarios we also get training requirements for like people who are going to start their career. So in that
Absolutely.
scenario, we will definitely get like people who want to start with basics like HTML, CSS, or JavaScript and things like that, right?
Yeah. So I ask
Yeah,
this question because a lot of time I see the developer believe they know CSS, HTML, JavaScript.
yeah.
I have come across that scenario, right? So a lot of time people say I know JavaScript, so let's directly jump to React.js. So I ask this question to Udit. So Udit, what your thought, right? A lot of time people say what to learn fast, whether directly jump onto a framework like React.js or Angular, or start learning JavaScript first.
Yeah, so like I have seen the same pattern recently. Like previously, it used to be JavaScript and jQuery, where obviously like these frameworks help you to build a lot of things fast. But eventually, when you switch frameworks, you have to go through the same friction. So I will actually suggest everyone here to actually first learn or actually know the concept behind the different patterns of JavaScript instead of getting into a framework. But if you are learning a framework, I would rather suggest to go in depth to it. I mean, like knowing like how a certain thing works is actually better than making, let's say, a toolbar or a menu bar in React or something like that. Because because you can do the same thing in on a lot other frameworks also, but knowing how React works behind the scene will actually help you understand the pattern or the abstraction used to build that thing.
So the way to go is learn JavaScript first.
Yep.
Cool. So we have a question. So Naveen, who is a UI engineer in IBM, has asked a question: How to focus on multiple JavaScript frameworks? Ankush, you like to answer this?
Sure. So, like Udit mentioned, right, once you have good knowledge of JavaScript, a lot of magic which the frameworks brings onto your coding style is eliminated. And what happens with learning a framework first is your way of solving problem becomes that framework, right? So, like they say that if all you have is a hammer, everything is a nail. So just having one tool and knowledge of one tool is not enough. But when it comes to like the practical world, when you are at a job, you don't have really time to like go to your manager and say, I'm going to learn JavaScript, then I'll go and make your feature in React. So that's never going to happen. So I would say divide the time 90 90%, 10%. So 90% is on the framework, 10% is in the core concepts, which you have to do. So that parallelly you are learning both things. But when it comes to multiple frameworks, I would say be able to draw parallels between the frameworks. So many times different frameworks try to solve problems in a similar fashion with maybe like a little bit different nomenclature or a different style of how you code, but under the hood everyone is trying to achieve the same thing, right? Performance, components, ease of use, etc. So draw the parallels, understand the parallels. Also, when a new framework is starting to catch on, definitely make sure you're exposed to the ideas. You don't have to be perfect, and you don't have to, know it thoroughly. But when you have good knowledge of one framework, and not one, maybe like two or three frameworks, and you have enough knowledge of JavaScript, you're able to understand how some frameworks implement the architecture beneath. So definitely like make sure that your core concepts are in place before moving to like understanding of the framework internals.
Yeah, that's a good thing. So again, a question on similar thing. So I'll ask Roshan. So there is a question. Uh, what are the good practice for an intermediate developer to progress to advanced developer? What have you felt in your journey?
Sorry, if I got the question right, you're saying from
What are
intermediate
the
developer to advanced developer.
yeah, what are the good practices they can take so that they can move from intermediate level to advanced developer?
Um, See, it's all about, I would say, look at the kind of problems the application or the product you're working on and see what is the need of the hour. Typically, if you have to become an advanced problem, you have to write some complex thing, it more or less will be solving a complex problem, right? So shift your thinking first to see, am I really solving a complex problem? So complex problems typically, let's say, will come out of scale, will come out of multiple dependencies. How do you manage multiple components? Let's say, if you even if you come to the core, UI aspects of it. So shift your thinking first, because that is what will make you see what is intermediate to advanced. Ultimately, it's the kind of experience you have, kind of exposure, kind of problems you have solved. So yeah, I would say start thinking. I think the more customer focused you are, the more you want to solve the problem, the more you're able to identify the problem. As Ankush said, you have to first find what is the nail you're hitting, then you have to look at the hammer. I think that will what will make you move from intermediate to advanced. It's not that I know 10 frameworks or I can do all those things. To be able to identify the problem and solve it in the right way.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good thing. So identify the problem first, even before jumping to the solution, right?
Yeah.
So we have a question which has got a lot of upvote also, which is asked by Amit Gupta. How to focus on web performance? I think performance is a big thing, and we have a second talk on performance also today. So how to focus on web performance and security? So we'll take it one by one. So first we'll say how to focus on web performance. Anybody can take this? Udit, Ankush, Naveen.
Sure,
Okay.
I'll take one dig at this. So I think there's one more question which says a kind of broad question: how to write JavaScript code that is optimized and scales, right? So we can club these two questions together, because if your code is optimized, then definitely your performance also increases. So one thing which I like to tell people about is the JavaScript shapes, which is basically the structure of your objects which you have when you write code. So, for example, think maybe you are dealing with a lot of data about students, right? So every student has a roll number, maybe an age, maybe a phone number or whatever. And many times we do a common operation, which is get age or get phone number. If you have a function like this and you're passing an object into it, if all the objects have the same shape, so what I mean is the same set of keys and similar values, then the browser has a lot of optimizing compilers, which writes code in getting the value of, let's say, dot age very quickly from that shape. So if you try to change the shape of the object too often, then the compiler has to de-optimize the code and try to like find the individual key in the set of properties of that object. So I have a talk on this. Maybe like if you hit me up, I'll send you the link. But the basic idea is in JavaScript, even though it's a dynamically typed language, if you write code which seems like it's statically typed, right, like a C++ or a Java code, it's going to be automatically be optimized by your browser's compiler or the JavaScript engine compiler. And that's one thing which will help you optimize your code definitely and make it more.
Udit, you want to add something to this?
Yeah, so I'll talk about the how to measure the performance aspect. So I think most of the web dev are actually using Chrome or any. I think most of the browsers are anyway shifting to the Chrome ecosystem. So there is a performance profile tab if you go into the dev tools. So you can record the session. Like let's say you are measuring what's the performance hit when you scroll a web page. So you can start a profile and scroll and stop the profile, and you can actually see what's the function invocation happened, how much time does it take. And same goes for Node.js also. You can do have a similar session in Node. So it's like usually I have seen two kind of problems. Like the second thing which I have seen commonly is the memory. So a lot of time we just use some data structure, or let's say there is a memory leak or something, right? So there is a memory profile also. So you can actually keep your app or a local server running for a while and keep on doing a memory keep on taking a memory snapshot after, let's say, every 5 or 10 minutes, and see like does the memory heap is increasing or not. So that's like a few of the ways you can actually measure the performance. uh, yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay, so I like
Yeah.
Naveen because
Yeah.
he do interact with a lot of corporates. So security is a big concern, right? When you talk about the big enterprises, and any specific training requirement comes to you for how to handle security, especially on the front end applications?
Yeah, so there are few requirements which I have, like come across with respect to security as well as performance, right? How to increase performance, for example, when you are using a framework like Angular, right? So security aspects, when I, like provide trainings to the customers, it is I'm going to just focus on how to uh, make use of what the framework provides you. For example, like uh, in case of security, right? So Angular provides you certain aspects of handling security, right? So how to make use of certain techniques to avoid certain like attacks like DDoS attacks, right? So those kind of things I normally deal with. And in terms of performance, like if I talk keeping Angular in mind, right? So there are various ways in which you can actually improve performance of your application. For example, making use of server-side rendering, that is one technique. And the fundamental concept of improving performance is keep your code as small as possible, right? And the better way is basically to like look into aspects such as uh, a single responsibility principle aspect when you are actually writing your code, right? So write the code which is small as well as focuses on what needs to be done rather than doing everything in one single place, right? There's one aspect. The other aspect is basically writing unit tests. I normally inform my participants saying that if you have written some code and assume that it's basically the code which is going to implement certain functionality, right? And if you cannot write unit test to that particular code, that means there is some flaw in the design, right? So unit testing is one of the like key aspects of improving your performance, plus also like improving the size of your code. If you have smaller code, it is better. It performs better in terms of performance, and it is also easier to test for you, right? With respect to security, I normally provide like security with respect to token based authentication, and also how to deal with authorization techniques, right? Most of the security that we normally deal in our applications today are majority of them should be implemented on the server side if you actually look into it, right? When it comes to JavaScript, because it is running on your browser, and that code can actually be seen by the client, right? So most of your security aspects should be dealt from your server. So what security aspects that you are going to implement on the client side is to improve the user experience part of it, right? So for example, if there is like a kind of a screen, and you want to like that particular screen should be appearing only to a particular set of or class of people, right? So I can provide that experience using a framework like Angular or React, of course, but that's not foolproof, right? So it has to be dealt. So there should be a layer of security even in the backend code that you are actually implementing, right? So this is something that I can tell about performance and security.
Sure. Thank you, Naveen. I think that was yeah. Roshan wants to add something. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, for performance, I think what Udit said, just add on it. Very basic things. What I look at it is, if you have a site, is two things. One is go to webpagetest.org, run your site, get the basic. I think start with the basics. I think that will make you ask fundamental questions. Why is my start render, taking time? Why are my, so many scripts loading? Why there are not, it gives you basic ratings. I think if the beginner or expert, doesn't matter. The first time, if if you have a new application, run it through it. And second, the most important thing in a Chrome inspect that you can do is, there is a throttling feature. You can throttle the network. Make sure you test with that, because in most of the cases, especially in India, the networks are patchy. The network speeds are not what the providers claim. The reality is different than what they say. But sometimes we'll be sitting in office with 100 Mbps connections. Wow, everything works in a flash. But you go to real scenario, it will start crawling. So throttle that. In Chrome, it's a very simple. You can say, okay, run it at slow speed, or you can even say run it at only 10 Mbps, and then see how it performs. Okay, especially with respect to backend integration, it helps in API calling. Many times the slowness will be there. So this is around performance. I would like to give a very basic view compared to what the other experts give. Security. What I would like to add on security is, see, there are two aspects: how you write code, whether your code is written in a secured fashion, and whether it's code when it is secure at runtime. So the two basic things you should always do is, how are you measuring this? How can you prove this by evidence? You cannot just say, okay, I have a 10 years experience, I'm an expert, I'm a senior developer, that's why it is secure. No. So the way to do it is, you run static code analysis on your code, and for your runtime, you have to run your VAPTs, vulnerability assessment and penetration tests. These two things are fundamental. If you go to any company when you're selling a product, and this is by experience, I'm telling you, that's what they ask. Show me your VAPT reports. Show me your static code analysis reports. So this, then you have a report. You just put it in front of there and no questions asked. And this also, and in my experience, I still remember, this was 10 years back, 12 years back. FICO, we were developed this product. This whole static code analysis, dynamic scans was still new. We were implementing at Mastercard, and they just ran the tool and came with one big list of these things. And we had to go on a war footing mode. In the next 1 month or 2 months, we had to do it. And all of these are then side products of it, like what Naveen said. cross-site request forgery, so use CSRF tokens, basic auth tokens, cross-site scripting. All these questions will automatically answer, and this helps you improve your knowledge. I think if I look back at my knowledge, how it has developed, these were the basic hygiene things that you do, and these things you cannot do it at the end. Please remember, when a project starts, these are some of the framework things which I say you should start. Let's say if you're in Agile, your sprint 0-1 should be this, which is basic. Your continuous integration development, your static code analysis is integrated there. If your VAPT is integrated there, if you have this, then you are saved. Otherwise, it will always be a catching up game that you'll have to do towards the end, and sometimes it might be too late.
Yeah, that's a very good point, Roshan. You have to start uh, when you start the project, the security and performance. It cannot come at the end of the game. So I think there is one question which is got a 9 votes almost. So is it wise to focus on just one JavaScript framework and make career in one, or learn all of them? Is being an expert in just one framework sustainable in the long run? Roshan, how you look for when you hire a new candidate?
Okay, so I think I really liked this one of the slides you put up. I think that's probably my takeaway today: the willingness more than skill. So see, it's the skill always will come. If I dedicate next, let's say 3 months or 2 months in developing native Swift code, I will get to it, right? So the willingness is what matters, and your way of identifying and approaching the problem. I think that, and if you look at it, most big companies, most advanced companies, that's what they look at. It's very famous, right? Whether you take Google, Amazon, any of these companies, you go there, and Udit and others can also add it. It's a norm now these days. You are not supposed to ask a Java or a JavaScript question, right? You cannot ask a technology skill, a particular framework questions. You will focus on data structures, algorithms. So what do these indicate? This indicates that you should be good at identifying problems, and your way of thinking towards the approaching the solution should be right. So learning one framework because it is cool today, I have a number of examples which I can give where which was cool at one point, eventually it died out. In my experience, I've seen people who have gotten tied to a technology or a framework or a product because they become experts in it, but with time neither did the product evolve nor they evolved. So don't get into this problem. I think different languages, different frameworks, all different needs. I think you should be a polyglot. You should be able to see what fits where. And as Ankush was saying, you should know the nail, and then so that you know what hammers are available, which I can use to nail this problem.
Yeah,
Hey
anyone?
Patro, I can add to that. I have been
Sure.
hiring manager for 15 years, mainly working on the web technologies in the enterprise segment. So the time has gone when we put an ad for the job position, we do tell we want Angular, we want very specific. But during the interview, the things have changed now. I look more on the learnability part of the person. While the skill is important because this person joins in 2 months and then he has to be productive day one. We are not here a coaching center to build their skills, correct? But over a period, we know that Angular will move on. Probably some other framework will come, having known the web technologies for a while. So while my immediate need is required, we also see in terms of the learnability. Is the person having the passion to learn? And whenever somebody, it's quite common nowadays, they pretty much put all the technologies in the resume. You search any resume, it will have all the keywords. I think that's a very beautiful way of putting. But what we try to do in the interviews, we try to understand, okay, if someone says machine learning, what depth have they gone? Have they attended a half an hour YouTube video, or have they done some hands-on? Have they done a project? How does their GitHub looks like? So I look at multi dimensions. The general learning keenness and curiosity we look for, in addition to the skill what they are claiming. Yeah.
Cool. So I
I,
know.
I think one question that was there was the long-term sustainability of one framework, right? So I'll answer that question with another question. Where are all the job postings for jQuery, Ruby on Rails, and Backbone developers nowadays? Right? You don't see them as often as you used to. So obviously, like with changing times, the framework changes, and if you just stick with that and don't learn something new, you get lost in time. So yeah, make sure you keep at par with what new frameworks are out there. Now, again, like not being an expert, but just having enough exposure when to know when to choose it and when to jump on learning it.
Yeah, so I like to ask Udit because I know Udit is a great JavaScript fan guy rather than the framework guy. So I think, what's your view on this?
So as Ankush mentioned, right? So frameworks might come and go, right? And like like there is a like meme, like every day there is like 10 new JavaScript they were built, right? But the language stays, right? So I think there is a saying like always bet on JavaScript. So if you are like familiar with JavaScript concepts, right? It will not take time to understand the framework patterns. So if you are talking about multiple frameworks, right? So it's wise to actually learn, let's say, Angular 1 and React, but not wise to actually learn, let's say, a new Angular 4, 5 with React, because both are using kind of a similar pattern. So if you are looking to invest in multiple frameworks, invest in learning the different patterns which each framework or library provides.
Awesome. Cool. So I'll move to next question and I'll ask that to Naveen. So what is a good method to get advanced in framework or languages? Is it by doing more courses from Udemy or the books or making small projects? So what's your thought, Naveen, on this?
Yeah, so the best way to learn something new is by creating a small application, right? So in my trainings, I don't believe in showing PowerPoint presentations. Rather, I would actually, prefer making the participants their hand dirty by actually trying implement concepts they learn. And one important point, which Udit was also telling, is that rather than investing your time on learning a framework, right? So your fundamentals need to be very strong, right? So whatever frameworks are there today, they're all based on JavaScript language. If you look into it on the web development front, right? So if you are strong in JavaScript, it's not very difficult for you to grab a new framework, right? So become strong in the fundamental, the foundation, right? And it's not very difficult to become a good person or good developer in Angular or React, right? So they all have something which is fundamental, which is there in the JavaScript language itself. Just that to make you a productive developer, right? So they implement all these basic patterns so that it will help you create your application faster, right? That's what they are actually aiming at. So giving a better productivity to developers, right? So I would rather tell that you become strong in JavaScript, and it is not very difficult for you to look into a new framework. It can be Angular, React today, and some XYZ framework which is coming tomorrow. That's not very difficult to pick it up. That is my thought here.
Yeah, so that's a good thing. So anybody want to add on something like how they do a learning?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'll
one
add
more thing.
some. So
Go ahead. Go ahead, Ankush. Okay.
Oh, okay. So what I was saying was, so the question was, how do I become advanced in that framework, right? Udemy books, projects, whatever.
Yeah.
The thing is, it's not an or situation. Sorry, it's not. You can just make it an and situation. You can do all of them. You don't have to stick with just one way of doing something. You can make a project. You can get a community together. So follow developers in that framework on Twitter and look at what kind of things they're doing. So oftentimes they will put their open source contribution. Go read that PR, because if you go and read a repo from the beginning, it's very daunting, right? It's a big code base you don't understand. But when you see small PRs or small issues they've solved, slowly you start putting a picture together. Also expose yourself to conference videos and to Udemy courses or whatever, so that you know what you can do. Even let's say if you start to build a project and if you don't even know what that framework can do for you, you're not going to like put the right solutions in, right? You're not going to use the advanced functions. You're not going to put the advanced patterns in place. You'll just create it based on your prior knowledge of some other language. You'll try to like impose onto this framework. So it's not an or choice. It's always an and choice. You can do each of them and like together get the full picture of learning and becoming really good at that framework. One thing that really works is if you can get a small subset of people in your range or maybe a little better than you together to like maybe make a dummy project or like a small hobby project, because then if 5 of you are working on that project together, you are learning together, sharing your knowledge, coming across different articles which you are sharing among each other, and together improving and becoming good at that framework. So definitely make sure you do all of them.
Awesome. I think I like that part also, and that's how I also learned the frameworks and the language. Roshan, you
That's
want
why
to?
we have this community, right?
Yeah.
Roshan, go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think I was more or less going to say what Ankush said. One particular thing I typically seen what works is initially while choosing the framework itself is solve the same problem with all the frameworks, or the most of the frameworks that you want to do. That will give you a flavor of how each framework is solving. And then going to advanced, yes, as Ankush said, collaborate with others. I think talking to other people helps, because you cannot try out all the problems yourself, or coming together and working on a project which has multiple. Let's say we're talking about JavaScript, multiple UI. So one UI could be very simple, the other could be complex. So when different people do different kinds of problem and you share, it helps. And meetups like these help. But yeah, the point that I wanted to make was try to solve the same problem with multiple frameworks first to get started. How those are fundamentally built.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah.
One more I want to add, because this dimension is normally missed out. As I told, in the organization we build the culture of learning. One thing my advice to people is, do not learn just because it is a fashion or it is the latest thing. Build the purpose first, why you are doing it. The why part could be for you to be market wise, you want to be competitive and you want to stay current, learn that, it's fine. But you are working in a hardcore technical, which is a data center and a C programming and a appliance product, and you want to apply machine learning. First find the problem, like, okay, how does the product make it better? The why part of it is so important. It could be your career choice to stay current in the latest technologies, or it could be that whatever you're learning new, for example, learning Docker. Okay, you learned the Docker, and then what? You should keep asking the question, then what? Okay, I learn it, after that what? Otherwise, I have seen watching Netflix and watching some courses online for 2 hours, it will be exactly same experience. You will feel good, you go to sleep, but beyond that what? So sign up for a project, sign up for a GitHub project, contribute towards even fixing a Mozilla browser bug, okay, is far more important than spending 10 hours of learning machine learning with no objective in mind. I think people get lost in doing the process because there are so many sources available. It's very easy to sign up for a course, you paid course, unpaid course and all. But what you lose is, why are you doing it? Please be clear on that. Otherwise, don't even do it. Netflix is more entertaining than technology.
Good.
Good
The
point.
problem, I'll add something to what you said, which is more from a learning perspective, and it adds to this whole reason of meetups. See, any learning, I think you would have heard of the pyramid, or whatever that shape is. Uh,
Experiential, yeah.
yeah, when you read something, when you watch something, it's only 5% of it you get. When you read a book about it, you probably get 10%, right? When you do it, you probably get another 50% of it. But when you actually teach it, that's when maximum it gets into your brain. So meetups are like that. I think Patro, all these people will help. MongoDB session that I'd given at meetup, still stays in my mind right here.
Right.
So get into that habit of, yeah, what I'm trying to say is, watching, coming, listening is the starting point. It gives you
Right.
sort of indexes. It indexes
Right.
your mind where to look what, and then start getting into reading mode, doing mode, and then teaching mode. That's how you attain the
Yeah.
expertise level.
One more on top to add is doing something with a purpose. For example, the COVID situation is so dire, you want to use machine learning to learn as well as contribute to community, or with a purpose, right? That helps the society or you. Then you will spend sleepless nights, not feeling tired. You don't feel drained, but because there's a purpose that is driving you. So that is more motivating for you to be disciplined and do. Otherwise, the weekends are good for enjoying. So we may have a purpose and do it. Yeah, I agree, Roshan, completely. The experiential learning hands-on is the most important.
Cool, cool.
Yeah, the accountability and responsibility, right? Like when my fundamental belief is, if you cannot make something complicated easy for learning for somebody else, you yourself haven't learned it well. Because if somebody's asking you whys and what's and hows and you're not able to defend that, that means somewhere there are knowledge gaps. And that's one reason why I teach. Like, I don't even, probably even if I know something 30%, I still try to make it easy for other people to get started. And the kind of questions that I get back show me how many holes are there in my understanding. And I make it a point to then go back and make sure that I answer it for the person who asked me that question, or maybe club those ideas together and do a small presentation so that other people can also learn. So, like I said, learning definitely helps in our own personal journeys as well. So it's like a feedback loop that gets created that benefits everybody in the end.
Awesome. I think this was one of the interesting question and a lot of good answers we got. So we have a question which is a little more technical asked by Asif Gupta. Uh, so while checking, maybe I'll ask this to Udit directly. While checking page speed without any third-party script, my page speed was 90 plus. But after including those, the speed reached to less than 45. Any suggestion on this?
Yeah, so there can be multiple reasons. So one primary use case which I have seen is while you are loading the third-party script, right? Which means it's not served from the same origin of yours, right? So let's say you are xyz.com and you are loading script from abc.com, and let's say anything else also, right? So what happens is as soon as the browser requires that script, it has to do again the DNS resolution. So that cost comes in, and then usually loading script from a third-party host is usually slower. So that's why you have seen a pattern like most of the websites actually have a static abc.com where they just upload their assets there and serve it from the same host name as yours, because that will not require browser to do multiple DNS lookups. But so I think in these modern browser there is a meta tag which you can actually give. So even before you request for the script, you can actually tell browser that eventually I am going to ask for xyz.com, so keep it prepared. So I think it's called prefetch or something, some meta tag is there. Then so browser has, if you are loading let's say 7 or 10 assets parallelly, right? So then also you have to understand that browser usually can make 6 call in parallel, or at most 6 calls, 6 network calls. So let's say you have to be mindful. But I have seen like now with Webpack and all, right, usually everyone just bundles their code and there is only 1 or 2 assets at max. So I think, yeah, so I mean, like these problems are mostly solved once you use a framework like Webpack or something. But that's one of which could be leading to the slower performance.
Yeah. Ankush, you want to add anything or?
Yeah, so that like you mentioned, right? When you import a third party into your main code, it's not just the loading of the file, but it's also what the script does after it has loaded, right? And if it's something heavy, if it's setting up a lot of listeners, if it's doing a lot of like DOM manipulation, then obviously your code will take a hit. So first question is, of course, do you need that script to be loaded immediately, or you can lazy load it later when you need it, right? So if you can make that decision, then great. One of the fundamental thing is understanding the critical rendering path of how your page actually loads, which is composed of different reasons and different concepts of how the page gets rendered. So understanding every part of the cycle and how that third party script is injecting into that cycle will help you understand where something's going wrong, and you can track it and take care of it. Also, you can run code coverage and see how much of that script is actually getting run. And like Udit mentioned, you can even like do async and defer to your JavaScript files for those third party and like put them off to the side, and you can load rest of your page and not take a hit. So, but understanding the fundamentals of what that script is doing into your page is also important, which is basically which comes into critical rendering path and how it changes the life cycle of your page, right? So if you take care of that, you should be good, and maybe you'll get back to 90 or maybe even 100 in your lighthouse score.
Yeah, so even I have read a Netflix blog where they say for the first phase they don't use any framework, none of the third-party libraries. It's vanilla JavaScript, HTML, and CSS to make their speed fast. So I think yeah, that also answers how you have to utilize the third-party libraries when and where. Okay,
Yeah,
so
like Naveen said, right? We can also do server-side rendering, and that will also make sure that your first page loads very, very quickly.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Server-side rendering also is a solution to this. Okay, so we'll be moving to next question, which has the five votes now. What is a good source to learn and practice algorithms and data structures?
Like the typical book which is there in our BTech course, that's a very good
Yes.
start. Start with that. Make sure you do all the basic data structures, heaps, stacks, queues, B plus tree, B trees, Bloom filters, AVL trees, red black, graphs, queues. That if you cover these pretty well, and also make it a point to like implement this by yourself as generic data structures in your JavaScript. So tomorrow you can actually use it in your code somewhere. What I make my students do is also make visualized versions of these code. So when people come, you can click and it creates a node, and you can like create links between them and play around with them. So that also teaches them CSS and HTML along with JavaScript and the data structure. So if you make it interactive and playful, that helps. Apart from that, HackerRank, LeetCode, these are obviously good. But once you have a firm understanding of the data structures and you've implemented them on your own, then you start solving the easy problems. And then when you solve a lot of easy problems, you start seeing patterns. And then you go to medium. And maybe if you have time, you go to the tough ones, right? But the more problems you do, so maybe like do one problem every week. Maybe in my group, every Sunday we get together and we do a DSA problem. And then we go over how to like structure the DSA code as you would put it in production. So it's not just about solving the problem. It's also about how clean your code is and how reusable your code is. So it's all about practice, practice, and practice, and also like making sure that you've read your book very well. Because I've seen a lot of people, they don't read the theory part of it; they want to skip over it, but they suddenly want to get good with DSA, and that's just not going to happen.
Yeah, so I want to understand from Naveen also because he already must be answering this question, right? On end of each training, like what is a good source to learn and practice algorithm and data structure?
So yeah, I don't train on data structures and algorithms, so I have not much of idea on that as of now.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So I think someone mentioned reading books is boring or something like that. So if you see like CodeChef and HackerRank actually have a YouTube page also where they keep on posting their session. So there is a recording session where someone from CodeChef actually explains the algorithm or the previous cautions of ICPC. So you can obviously do that. And I think Geeks for Geeks also has this short series where they have like 4 or 5 minutes of videos dedicated to a particular algorithm. So yeah.
Yeah. I'll just add to that.
Sure, Roshan.
Yeah, I think reading books you really cannot eliminate, and I think I agree to Ankush. In all BTech that is there, I think we somehow miss it out, and nobody. At least during my days, maybe that importance was not given. I'm seeing these days, and I look at interns, I still see that a bit of a pattern. Still, that it is not data structure algorithms is not getting the importance that it needs to get. So yeah, I think there is no other shortcut there. Book will help. And to answer specific question, if somebody has already done that, how to go to next level and all, I think there is a nice book which is How to Crack the Coding Interview, right? That's one of the famous books. All tech guys, who are trying to advance themselves use it, and it also helps you crack interviews at some of these tech giants like Google, Amazon, Microsoft, all these places. So yeah, How to Crack the Coding Interview, I would say recommend that as the next step.
Okay, cool. I think similar line. I think there is one more question is coming with more upvotes, which is asked originally by Poonam Chauhan. How to start contributing in open source technologies? I think this is a great question. I'll say.
Well, answer.
Yeah, sure.
Start using open source first. Because I'll tell you, once you start using open source, you start adopting it, then you start seeing problems in it, you'll realize that you got the big benefit of it, and there's a small problem, I can solve it, and if I give it back, the community will appreciate. And what is that? It's like returning your favor, returning the favor. So that automatically that mindset will come.
Yeah.
That's how I've seen. Typically my experience, that's what has happened. Couple of the recently in Simplify, we took a whole big open source, that gave us made us launch a particular service in like, let's say, from 1 year to 3 months. It's like at 1/4 the cost and time. Obviously, now we are looking at whatever enhancements we see because of our use case. We see it as a generic solution which will enhance the actual open source solution. We contributed back.
Yeah, just to add up, like, so you cannot contribute to something which you are not using at the first place. So it will not happen that you wake up someday and say, okay, I will go to Facebook's GitHub org and contribute to GraphQL. And if you have never used GraphQL before, so I will suggest to actually see which tools you are using in your day-to-day life and see if they are open source. So just if you are familiar enough, you can just go to the issue thread, and most of the open source community has this good first issue or low hanging fruit label on it. So you can just query on those labels and see if and then first get familiarized with the code base and look into those open issues or reported by someone else, or let's say you yourself came across as a particular issue which you want to be fixed.
Awesome.
Cool. I'll add to this a little bit if you're okay, Patu.
Sure, Ankush.
Yeah. So one other thing is like even going in as a first timer, like having fresh eyes on a repo, reading its README and finding problems, or contributing examples, or maybe even like drawing diagrams. Like let's say you learned something about React's lifecycle and it was very confusing for you, and you made like a diagram to make it easier for you to understand. Maybe a flowchart or something. Contribute that back so that when if it does get accepted, maybe other people will be able to like understand from like a fresh perspective of how you got to it, because generation after generation the way of understanding things also changes. So of having a gradual way of learning helps. And the second thing is whatever you do, try to like, make it open source. And open source doesn't have to be like this thing with like 500 stars and like 20,000 followers or whatever. Even if you've like built some generic data structure algorithm which you did, put them in a repo and like share it with your friends, share it on your LinkedIn, share it with like the next generation of BTech students who might be able to use from it. When they put out, encourage them to ask questions, right? Breaking the barrier, like from the people's standpoint, is a very important thing. So encourage them to ask questions, encourage them to send PRs, encourage them to open issues, and be very responsive when that happens. Like reach out to them before they ask a question, and that way you can contribute to at least the open source knowledge, and then slowly build from there, like Udit and Roshan mentioned about the products you've built. So definitely like also start new things, don't just add on to things which are already there. Make things easier. Maybe if you've learned React a particular way, set up a starter kit or a tutorial based project which you've done, and show people in different commits or different branches how you build that project. So somebody who comes new can just like see your changes in code one by one and understand how a basic React project is built, or something similar on those lines. So make sure that whatever time you've invested in your own learning, you're able to put it back out there.
Yeah, I certainly echo this with Ankush because I have, when I started writing my blogs, so still in my blog, some of the diagrams are there, which is I've handily drawn it and then took a picture and uploaded it because that's how I understood it. And I certainly echo that. And when I was trying to understand the JavaScript concepts like prototype inheritance and this and things like that, I started writing blog also, and that helped me definitely. Okay, so we'll move to next question, which has four awards asked by Naveen G. How to make a routine or divide time between office and personal skills? How you can make that time where you want to work for office as well as do your personal development?
Can I take a dig at it?
Sure.
Okay, so you have to realize that office is not just your life, right? Like I forget which movie was that where they said office is a part of your life. It's not your full life. So you have to make sure that you are also treating your personal life as a full component, just like how you are able to like encapsulate the office work into one particular time of your life. And that may include learning the technologies you want to do and you want to learn to grow. Like for example, I told you, right? I keep my mornings free just for myself, where I do no other work related things or no other volunteer related things. It's just me time. It's me for 1 hour, 1.5 hours doing things which Ankush wants to do. And that helps because over time, if my office, and by the way, that helps because at work, I'm not supposed to just pull from work and do what they have told me. Sometimes, like most of the times, I have to be the person driving what happens at work, because that's what my company has hired me for, right? They have hired me to solve problems. They have not hired me to code and React. So I have to be the one to be able to tell them what's new and happening, what has been changing, what new solutions are out there, how we can like move in a different direction. So that can only happen when you devote enough time for your own personal development in your knowledge base. So definitely like be very, very militant about making sure that you have time for yourself, and nobody should be able to touch that time. Like if I'm doing something, my WhatsApp is on silent, my LinkedIn is on silent, I have no distractions, no phone calls, nothing. Like for that 1.5 hours, nobody is going to disturb me, unless like of course there's an emergency and then they can reach out, but generally like I do not do any other work in that zone which I've created for myself. So be militant about it, and be honest to yourself about why you're doing it. and that will help you make sure that you keep.
Yeah. So I think I'll ask this Naveen because how he make is because he might be keep on giving training on particular technologies, right? And then some new libraries come, new framework comes. How you take out that time to learn new things?
Yeah, so as Ankush has told rightly, right? I was to just give a small background about why did I shift my, career from software development into this training field. One is that I wanted to learn something new, and of course, in order to make it very good, the foundation that I have, as Roshan also told, whatever you learn, right, it is for yourself. It is when you actually start sharing that knowledge with others, you are going to get a lot of questions, right? And those questions you should not allow them to just go, right? So note down those questions as Ankush told earlier and try to answer them, right? So yeah, of course, this is going to be a continuous cycle, right? And I was a little more passionate about learning new things, and then in order to cement it, that knowledge, right? I started sharing knowledge, right? Yeah, of course, when I want to learn something new, I just fix a time for myself and then not get distracted by others is what Ankush has already told. We'll have to have that particular dedicated time for ourselves in order to learn certain things, right? This is one part of it. The other part is when I share the knowledge with others, right? The other thing which we also, Ankush also has told this about, try to build a small bank of questions what you come across from different people, right? So different people will keep on asking you certain questions. They may be silly questions, they may be good questions. Don't ignore any of them, right? Try to find an answer to every question that you get, and that is how you are going to learn more about that particular subject. It can be any subject for that matter, right? So just keep on trying to answer the questions that you come across, and this is going to not only improve you as a person, it will also help the community to you are actually not only you are growing, you're also helping others to grow. So that is something which we can try to practice over a period of time. It's not going to be a one day thing. It's going to be a continuous learning and sharing, right? So sharing knowledge is the best way, as in my experience, where you can actually grow in a particular area. It can be anything. It could be technical area or it can be non-technical. Any new subject that you come across, try to understand what question that you are getting and how is that you can actually find an answer, and again give it back to the community, right?
Cool. Yeah, so we'll take question for next 5 minutes more, and our panels will be still there because we have a second session on the web performance. So they will be answering. So I'll request all our panels to answer directly on the chat if you see any questions which you can answer. So in the
Hey,
interest of time, we'll take
Patro,
a few questions.
Patro, do you want to take one or two questions live instead of the question listen?
Yeah. So
Do we
any
have provision? Yeah.
yeah, we have. So they can raise their hand and they can I can just pull them in and they can ask their questions.
And
So let me.
Patro, I'll just add on to this question, what we were just discussing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sure, sure.
go ahead.
Yeah, I think this is a very good question, by the way, whoever asked it. And I would like to, and I think it is important that I share my experience. So if I look at it, I think we have a mix of audience here, right? I'm assuming most of you would be very young, still bachelors, or might have just got married. So this is also touching upon the whole work-life balance or the harmony we talk about, right? See, the answer is in the question itself. If I have to point it, it's the routine. I think underline that word. I think that's very critical. I think I have two kids now. I can tell if kids don't follow routine, it's a chaos in my home. Okay, and I mean, Ankush and Naveen covered what you need to do. I think taking notes and having your time. I think make a list of all the things you come across so that, and make time, as Ankush said. So when you have time, you can just dwell on it, because in office time you cannot always get distracted, get your me time and all those things. So make a note of it, but then when you have your time, go through it. And another important thing about routine is routine changes with as your role changes in life, whether it is professional or personal. When you are a normal developer, when you become a senior developer, when you become a manager, XYZ group manager, it changes. When you are a bachelor, you're dating, married, kids go to school, changes, right? So you have to be very adaptable. Your routine needs will change as you progress in life, as you achieve different milestones. So be open to it, be ready to change. For example, 15 years back, if I look at it, when I was a bachelor, I had all the time. If I do lunch, breakfast, dinner on time, the rest of the time is mine. Maybe workout time for 1.5 hours in the morning, and that's it. After that, it's all my time, right? Then it changes once you get married. So you will have to be little, you have to take your time out for your dinners, other things, this thing. So make sure in the morning you wake up early, you do your stuff. Once you have kids, trust me, that's what I said. If I don't put them to bed on time, my time goes for a toss. So, and they also get cranky. You would have heard all these parents say, right? So it's very essential that you keep and you have to trade off. For me, I have traded off my TV time, because TV cannot run. If kids will come and watch their stuff, yes, I have my phone or my tab, and I watch it once in a over the weekend, maybe one night or one morning. I'll just keep it for entertainment. But otherwise, early in the morning and before, once after kids go to bed, that's where 1 hour I spend on reading something that I wanted to read, or I want to explore, I want to do something. But yes, understand, routine is important. Routine changes with as time progresses, and you have to make trade-offs. Right? Today I have traded off my TV time, I have traded off something else. My workout has come from gym to just probably running around the house 100 times. But that's what you'll have to make your choices and trade-offs. That's very critical, because that's the fundamental to everything else we are talking about here.
Yeah, that's a very good explanation. I can certainly echo to it. So we'll take a last question, which so Vinod has asked. He's a student, and first of all, I'll say, hey, Vinod, I'm really thanking you joining this. So, what to focus on by college third year? What we should focus when we are in college?
So I assume it's from a computer science or an IT background. I assume so. He's here. In third year, you have to focus on what Ankush is saying you should be doing. So definitely reach out to Ankush over LinkedIn and ask what's happening. But generally, by third year, you should be focusing on getting internships at reasonably good startups or good companies, if you can. And I was a stupid kid. I did not know about internship. That was a big mistake of my life. um, Try to like apply as many places. Like every morning 15 minutes you should be spending on applying to companies in a like a very specific introduction to a recruiter or to the CV or whatever, because you should not be copying pasting your hey, I want a job, give me a job. It should be, hey, hey, I just saw that you guys raised a CDC and you served so many users. I love that your company is growing so well. I want to go and intern there. So be very specific with why you want to join that company. Try to get an internship. Definitely try to learn either a good mobile technology or be good in web. Java, C++ is good, but there's going to be a lot of competition when you graduate in those two fields. So try to set yourself apart. Try to join as a junior front-end developer if you can, and if you don't have any preference into a company, because there's always a bad ratio between good front-end to good back-end, just because of the nature of how our BTech shapes us. And do a lot of hobby projects. So every resume, like Janardhan mentioned, right? Every resume is going to be a rockstar resume with all the main skills they learned at BTech. Everybody will be an expert in C++. Everybody would have used Java to do data analysis and warehousing, and whatever academic project just turned into some kind of a hobby project. But have real hobby projects. I built a chat app which handled 150 users of my college. Get real users for your product. Nothing beats seeing real use of your product than just a sample hobby project which was built and shelved somewhere else. So I built an event management for my college. I built a small e-commerce app for the Kirana shop in in my college locality or whatever. Build real hobby projects. 2 or 3 are good enough. Build them with good technology. If you can, go for the modern frameworks. But if you don't, even that's okay. Because when we see a college student who has built actual software, even when they were not supposed to, that sets them apart from the other candidates who have just like known data structures and learned C++ and Java and just like, applied for the same mass recruitment placement. So I hope like these 2 points help. If not, also reach out to my mentoring group. I specifically focus on college students and help them make sure they hit the right paths while getting a good job. So reach out to.
Yeah, so I think we are still questions flowing, but we have a time limit. And so what we'll do, I'll request all the panels to be on this talk. So we have a second talk now on performance. So while that talk will go on, you can still be on chat, and I'll encourage you guys, if you can answer all the questions which is there, then it will definitely be helpful. Okay, I'm sorry to all the attendants, which we could not take the questions because of time constraint, but I'll definitely see the panelists will be there and they will try to answer those.
Okay.
So
Thank you all.
thank you all. So we'll move to our second
Thank you.
session. I'll end the session and I'll give it a break for 5 minutes and then we'll start the second session.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Naveen, Roshan,
Bye.
Udit, and Ankush. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks,
Thanks,
Udit.
Patra.
Thank you.